The guns had fallen silent. Across Europe, a great and terrible war was finally over. 4 years of conflict had ended, and a collective sigh of relief echoed around the globe. People dared to hope for a lasting peace, imagining a world without such slaughter. The world was weary. So much had been destroyed: lives, homes, entire landscapes. Millions had perished, and nations mourned their lost youth. People yearned for normalcy, to rebuild and heal deep wounds. The war left scars on everyone. A grand treaty was being prepared, to be signed in a famous palace. Leaders from victorious nations gathered, carrying the hopes of millions. They promised a different future, a world where diplomacy prevailed. No more would young men die in trenches. The Treaty of Versailles, they called it, a beacon of hope for many. It was designed to mend a broken world. But could such a document truly erase the bitterness? The shadows of the past were long. The future, despite hope, remained deeply uncertain. Why did this great conflict erupt? The reasons were tangled old empires in decline, new powers rising. Alliances meant for protection pulled nations into war after Archduke Ferdinand's assassination in Sarajevo. The war consumed nations for 4 years. Trenches scarred the earth. Young men lived and died in mud, facing machine guns and poison gas. Civilians suffered food shortages, bombings, disease. Economies were pushed to breaking point. Society's fabric frayed. Germany and its allies were ultimately defeated. The victors, Britain, France, America, wanted justice and lasting security. The world held its breath, waiting for the terms of peace. Peace was not just desired, it was essential. A desperate need to rebuild shattered lives and silence the cannons. The hunger for peace was palpable in every village and city. People prayed for an end to the endless suffering. The Palace of Versailles became the stage for peacemakers, or so the world hoped. The setting was grand, but the task was monumental. Leaders from many nations convened. President Wilson with his 14 points, Clemenceau seeking security, Lloyd George searching for compromise. Each had their own vision for peace. The treaty that emerged was stern, placing heavy burdens on Germany. Germany lost territory, paid vast reparations, and faced strict military limits. These terms were imposed, not negotiated. Many celebrated the treaty's signing. Parades in London and Paris. A belief took hold: this was the war to end all wars. The document was signed with solemn ceremony. Hope soared, briefly, like a dove. But the foundations of this peace were not as strong as believed. Beneath the surface, doubts lingered. The world watched, uncertain if true peace had been achieved. Not everyone shared in the joy. In Germany there was shock and anger. Many Germans felt humiliated, betrayed, not defeated on the battlefield but stabbed in the back by politicians. This narrative took root, fueling resentment. The treaty's terms were undeniably severe. Some observers questioned if it was too harsh. Could a nation crippled by debt recover, or would resentment fester? These uneasy questions hung in the air. The ink on the treaty was barely dry, but cracks were already showing. Even among the Allies, doubts surfaced. Was this a genuine, sustainable peace, or just a pause in hostilities? Some saw in the treaty's clauses the seeds of future conflict, a peace built on punishment, not reconciliation. The world tried to move forward. The Roaring Twenties began, a decade of apparent prosperity, jazz, and social change. A fragile optimism bloomed. People wanted to forget the war, to embrace life again. But beneath the glittering surface, deeper troubles brewed. Economic instability and political unrest simmered. The wounds of war had not truly healed. The peace was fragile and the future uncertain. The world was changing, and not all for the better. Shadows of the past lingered, threatening what little peace had been won. Then, like a sudden storm, the Great Depression struck in 1929. Stock markets crashed, banks collapsed, businesses failed. Millions lost jobs, savings, homes, and hope. Despair spread across nations. In Germany, hardship was extreme hyperinflation, mass unemployment, and a struggling Weimar government. People grew desperate for solutions, seeking strong leaders and simple answers. A new voice rose: Adolf Hitler and his National Socialist Party. He promised to restore Germany's greatness, provide work, and tear up the hated Treaty of Versailles. His words found eager ears among a population embittered by circumstance. Other nations also shifted. Italy under Mussolini, Japan growing aggressive. Japan invaded Manchuria, seeking empire. The League of Nations, meant to prevent aggression, proved powerless. The world was rapidly changing, and not for the better. Old certainties crumbled. The Peace of Versailles was unraveling. The stage was set for new conflict. The Treaty of Versailles, meant for peace, became a weapon for those seeking conflict. Hitler used its harsh terms to rally support, justify rearmament, and fuel national resentment. Germany rebuilt its military first quietly, then openly defying the treaty. The Rhineland was remilitarized. Austria annexed Czechoslovakia, dismembered. The world watched with alarm, but responses were hesitant. Appeasement became the policy of the day. The victors of the Great War hesitated to act decisively, haunted by memories of past horrors. This inaction came at a terrible price. Aggression grew bolder. Less than 20 years after the war, peace collapsed. The war to end all wars proved a tragic illusion. In 1939, a new, even more destructive conflict erupted: the Second World War, the bitter harvest of a flawed peace. Why is enduring peace so elusive? It's as fragile as a rare species, easily disturbed and hard to restore. Human emotions, pride, fear, revenge, can overwhelm the best intentions. The story of Versailles teaches a profound lesson. True peace is more than a signature on a document. It requires fairness, understanding, and constant care. Like a garden, peace must be tended, or resentment will grow. A treaty imposed too harshly can sow the seeds of future wars. Resentment, if left unaddressed, can smolder for years, then burst into flame. Forgiveness